Before we get into the conversation, I just want to talk to you about a brilliant platform called Thatch. Now, if you're feeling overwhelmed about planning your next trip, or maybe you just want to make sure you're making the most of your time away, you can now stop the endless scrolling and save yourself hours of research and stress. Whether you're looking for personalised trip advice or a fully custom itinerary, Thatch has thousands of local experts in over 80 countries ready to share their first-hand knowledge to help you plan your ideal trip. It's easy to get started. Search for your destination and browse local experts available for hire, or discover curated travel guides and itineraries you can use to DIY your trip. With Thatch, it's easy to be in the know wherever you go, no matter your budget, travel style or needs. Head to thatch.co, that's THATCH.co, and start taking better trips with less stress today. Now, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Curated Spaces, the podcast that explores the stories behind spaces reimagining how we stay, work and play. Join me, Molly Cooper, as I sit down with founders, owners and thought leaders to hear about their journey of bringing a space to life. Great spaces shape our lives. They inspire, nurture and connect us. But most importantly, they bring us together to share life's milestones with the people who mean the most to us. So whether you're a traveller, foodie or design seeker, join us as we celebrate the power of spaces and the brilliant people behind them. I'm sat in the snug dining room here at the Double Red Duke on the eastern border of the Cotswolds. With its golden Cotswold stone, tumbling wisteria and iconic red striped umbrellas, this space greets you the moment you arrive here in Clanfield. And today we have a double dose, if not one, but two guests joining me. Husband and wife, Sam and Georgie Pearman founded the Country Creatures collection of hotels, and today they're going to share the story behind the Double Red Duke. Sam, Georgie, it's such a pleasure to meet you both. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today?
Great. Yeah, really good. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. And before we get into the story of this space, I'd like to chat a bit about you guys and where you've come from and your journey to being here in the Double Red Duke.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I know I started out as a chef. Before that, I was briefly a rugby player for a bit. And then I worked out that I was much better one side of the bar.
Usually the wrong side of the bar.
Side of the bar. And I sort of, I did some cooking when I was younger, and I sort of went back into it when I was in my 20s, and then started chefing, and then moved from chefing into management, floor waiting, bar work, a whole spectrum of it, and then we slowly just over the time moved out of London, worked in some London places, moved out of London with children, and have based ourselves in the Cotswolds for some time now.
Oh, gorgeous. And how about you, Georgie?
Well, I sort of grew up in hotels. My parents were hoteliers, so I sort of grew up in nappies in hotels and things, and sort of, doing hospitality jobs whilst I was at uni and various things like that. And then became a lawyer for about 10 years, and then decided, well, I sort of knew straight away that it wasn't for me, but I carried on for 10 years and then retrained when I was on maternity leave. I went to Chelsea College of Art and Design and did interiors there, interior design course. And then Sam was working sort of Michelin star restaurants in London. And when we moved out of London, I basically joined forces with him, and we got our first place in Cheltenham. And Sam sort of was running that, and I was sort of sitting up in a little office up on the top floor. And then the whole thing sort of started snowballing, I guess. Then we got our second site, and then created the Lucky Onion. So we sort of co-founded that, and then the whole thing just started building.
Yeah, and I'd love to get into the space we're in now, but can we start by just setting setting the scene for people listening in and paint a bit of a picture about where we are in the world.
So we're probably about 20 minutes drive from Oxford and quite close to Burford, maybe under 10 minutes to Burford, in the heart of the Cotswolds. And it's beautiful sort of honeycomb stone, Cotswold stone building. Like you said, it's sort of Wisteria clad, and so very, very typical of the area. And it dates back, I think, to the 1600s. So it's been sort of at the heart of the Clanfield community for that long, for hundreds of years, and continues to be as well. So
I think it was built as a manor house originally,
and then converted.
And converted into an inn. I mean, one of the interesting things here actually was it was never called the Double Red Duke. And it was actually it was always called the Plough. Okay. And when we sort of decided to buy it, I was pretty keen to change the name because there are so many ploughs, and I think in the process of buying it, I kept on calling it the wrong plough, and so that was part of the problem. Was I think if we were going to do something here, it had to be something that's jumped off the page. If you're thinking about a weekend or a day away, you can't be in amongst 4 other ploughs. Yeah. So that was controversially to change the name.
I'd love to hear where this came from.
I'm not sure if I should be saying this, but it's complete fiction, but loosely based around the guy who had it as a manor house. And so I sort of imagined this world of famine and destitution. A double red is a strain of corn. So I had the story in my head that this local duke had saved the local population by creating a strain of corn called the double red. Yeah. And he was called the Double Red Duke. And that's why we sort of stuck with the name.
I love it, and it does catch you. And I think, especially with all the red throughout the hotel, which I'm sure we'll come on to, it does jump off the page. Especially, like we said, lots of goldstone, lots of wisteria, very calm, and then you have these punchy red umbrellas outside. It really, in magazines or on websites, it really catches your attention.
Yeah, that's quite annoying actually, because like I designed all the interiors and everything. Then all the PR people we were meeting and journalists and stuff was just saying, God, the best thing about that place is these stripy umbrellas outside. I mean, you're genius, Georgie. And I was like, actually, that's annoying because it's the one thing that Sam actually did. This is really annoying.
That's brilliant. Okay, so I'd love to hear, you find this building, you see this could be a very special place. What were you hoping at that stage? Did you see it in its current form now, or was it very much a journey of working out what it was going to become and bringing that to life?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it had 11 bedrooms, didn't it?
Yeah,
originally?
I mean, it was a lovely. The bones of the building were incredible, and actually the site itself is quite generous. It's got sort of it had the benefit of outbuildings, and but I think it's not too big. So it was actually. I think our hope was that we could create a sort of somewhere halfway house between a country house and a pub. That's where I think it sort of sits nicely. And yeah, I mean, I think we were able to add a sizable volume to the building, so because it didn't really have any restaurant. It had a tiny bar, which was the restaurant, and then it had a sort of sequence of small rooms, and so it didn't really link very well. It felt, because it was old. It's very old, so it was just a very small.
Well, I think when you sit here, we're sort of sitting in one of the dining rooms. It feels like a medieval pub, doesn't it? Because you've got the Inglenet fireplace there that they would have cooked over and things historically. But then we sort of doubled the size of the property really by adding on to the back and then converting barns and storerooms and things. But the back, you don't feel that it kind of feels part of the property, like it's always been there, because we found old manor house, like it came from a Kent manor house. It was also like stained glass and old panelling and things from a similar age property that had been taken out. So we reused that. And so it does feel like part of this building.
There's distinctive areas where I think that was part of that's why it works quite well. It's quite hard to operate, but it's really nice for people who are staying here because you've got different areas where you can sort of hang out.
No, I definitely get that. And you walk in, it's very cozy, that beautiful like bottle green on the wall. And then you go up and there's sort of like beams almost like jutting the corridors a bit. And I think I was actually in the extension at the back, but you wouldn't actually notice, I don't think, if someone hadn't told me like, oh, you're in the new bit. So it's really well done. And then you come down and there's the amazing restaurant with the great glass in the ceiling. And it's such a good, very clever combo of like, say, old cozy snug pub like we're over here in this cozy corner, and then these big beautiful light filled spaces. It's gorgeous. But of course, so this renovation was mid-pandemic, was it?
We actually bought it just at the beginning of no, we had a whole sort of year of prep, because it's listed grade 2, isn't it? Grade 2. So we had to do that, and I think we ended up having a building project in the middle of the pandemic, which we kind of had to sort of work around, which did delay it, but not massively.
Building projects were allowed, weren't they, during
so,
that time? So,
but it was just looking back. I mean, it's it sort of worked very well. The people who worked on the site were just absolutely brilliant. I think everyone was sort of learning as they went anyway, because no one knew what they were.
It was a team of men from Yorkshire, wasn't it? And they were pretty sort of stoic about it, and everyone doing it in face masks and carrying on.
When it was announced COVID was finishing, that gave us a sort of a starting or an end point for us to sort of say, look, that's where we would like to open. And I think we were all kind of ready for just before Christmas, but we were still sort of, I think, in sort of half lockdown. It wasn't. So we had this nice date that we would work to.
Hotels were allowed to open, wasn't it? Yeah. Which I think that was like April. Is that April 21 or something?
Yes.
Yes. So we opened in May or something like that, because it's quite difficult. You've got to test all the kitchens and train all the staff and things, and when it's lockdown, that's kind of pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So.
And then we also, because we did the outbuildings, they were on a separate planning application that came later. So we did it was quite nice to release a little bit of the building, and then we worked slowly back on the next phase, which was only sort of 6 weeks later, and then we were fully operational by the summer. And I think that worked quite well, because we had a sort of natural build to maturity, and we didn't have this sort of pressure of like a kind of a built up what's the word, we hadn't sort of built something up for a massive crash. We were able to just slowly get the team together, and it was quite hard to recruit people, and it was just tricky, because there were lots of people in furlough, so they didn't want to move jobs, and but we did have a slightly new kid on the block, so that's always quite attractive to recruit. So
how did the launch go? Was it overnight success, or was it a bit of a slow burn?
We were very, very lucky because of COVID, because I think we opened a new boutique hotel pub, where there was no new news for the media outlets, etc. So we were very lucky in that respect, because a lot of people wanted to know about it, because they didn't really have much to say about new things. So I think that really helped us. And certainly when we opened, the room occupancy was...
Well, no one could go abroad at that point as well, which kind of helped us.
Summer staycation.
Yeah. It's actually been 24 months, really, for that to sort of... even this summer, I think people are still sort of hesitant.
Well, then we hit cost of living crisis, inflation, high interest rates, all this kind of stuff. And then people are like, well, actually, it's quite expensive to go away on holiday, and I'll stay in the UK. So actually, I think British hotels have really benefited from that side of it. We keep saying, actually, like, well, because of COVID, high inflation, cost of living, striking, and we never really seem to have a year in this industry where there's not a big problem that we get impacted by. The other thing that was with Brexit, everyone disappeared back home, back to Australia, New Zealand, Eastern Europe, wherever they were going.
The COVID period of people, and what we found very difficult at the beginning was housekeeping, and that sort of thing that you've slightly taken for granted for some period of time, has now, that world has totally changed. So, so it was a battle, because we had lots of rooms straight away, and that was obviously a real rude awakening. But over time, it's.
But you could have us for half an hour talking about all the problems of the industry, which maybe
don't get me started.
Exactly.
No, I love it. I'll come back to that. Well, then let's talk about the interiors, because I know umbrellas aside, this was very much you and your work, Georgie, and I'd love to hear like your process or how you approach building bare bones. Like, how do you even go about bringing it to life?
Sam is very much involved with it as well. I mean, he's sort of more like the client, really, in a way, because I sort of put everything together, and then he's like, no, yes, no.
Well, yeah.
He has quite strong opinions about it all. So
obviously, my brain is quite operationally wired, so I kind of feed into her plans as to where things would work and what won't, like ergonomics of the building and flow of service, etc. So I think that kind of is always, that's where there's a sort of debate, a regular negotiation going on in our design and the way we do things, but I think it does work quite well.
Because there is that real balance in hotels, isn't there, between making somewhere really beautiful that guests want to come and stay, but it also needs to be operational.
Yeah, and practical, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, I think with a building like this, your job's relatively easy because you can't go and do rip it all out and do something modern or go crazy. It is a medieval, ancient building, and therefore you need to respect that. And so all the furniture and the art and everything that goes into it it needs to look like it's integral rather than, and not saying that you're sort of going back into sort of faux medieval stuff, but it's, it definitely has its own character, and you just build on that, really.
And how much of this stuff, as I look around, it's got these beautiful old chairs and tables, feels like they could have been here for years.
Yeah.
How did you go about sourcing all of this?
I get quite a lot of stuff from antiques markets, antiques fairs. I've got a big network of antiques dealers that I use now, that I've used for years. So yeah, a lot of the chairs and furniture are old, and the panelling, is reclaimed. So yeah, you do get that feeling of age.
Because I know, Georgie, this is where I think the most time goes. Yeah. I think it's
so time consuming.
Procuring and deciding, and because you have to do it with the size of everything in mind and the footprint of the building. So it's not like a sort of you can't go off and just start buying stuff and hope it works. Yeah. It's all measured, and I think this particular project was sort of we're quite careful on everything having the right feel, and so I think a balance of making sure that it felt authentic.
I like to make my life really difficult as well, and sort of every room being different. You could do a sort of very corporate commercial hotel where you have one scheme and you roll that out across your 200 bedrooms, but here every single room's different, and every single room has different furniture and has different fabric, so every room is unique, and that obviously in itself is quite labour intensive, and probably really stupid as well. I could have really simplified it, because if you're staying here you wouldn't know what the next room is so different.
Well, you would if you came back, which obviously everyone who stays here must want to come back again, so.
That's the aim. Hopefully. Yeah.
I just have to say, the bath in our room at least was potentially the biggest bath I think I've ever seen.
In room 5. Oh, the big black bath. Yeah, beautiful bath. Yeah, again, that's sort of, it's so big that it actually drains the system on a regular basis. So we had a few issues at the start.
We've got 2 of those, or 3 of those.
We've got 3 of them, and to start with,
the M&E guys hadn't quite got the calculations right, because I think day one we were like, actually everyone has those 3 baths. There's not enough water, so.
Well, we sort of build it so that everyone can shower and have baths at the same time. That is the whole spec, and that's what you start with from day one. But somehow it messed up. Yeah, and I think it's the size of the baths. Yeah, they're huge. I mean, you could fit a family of 4 in them, can you? Yeah.
I should have bought my costume. Yeah. So let's talk about food then. I'd love to know how you brought this menu to life. What inspiration were you pulling from? What were you trying to embody with your food here?
So we one of the big things was to play on this medieval building that we had. It's quite sort of dark, and particularly when you walk in, it's quite low ceilinged and wood panelled, etc. So I quite like the idea of when you check in, because the reception area is quite close to the kitchen. And it's sort of free-flowing, so I quite wanted to work with fire. So that was part of the reasoning behind the kitchen. We only cook on wood. We have electric bits, which are all induction, but the main majority of the kitchen is actually cooked live fire. And there's a big kitchen island, so people can sit round and talk to the chefs if they're lucky. So we cook on apple and cherry wood, which is locally sourced, and we have rotisserie units. We have a sort of proper rise and fall grill, and then we have a wood oven for flatbreads, etc., and slow cooking. So I think it's part of the thing. My vision was sort of when you walk in, you immediately get confronted with this sort of experience. I think that's where people, if you're booking something, you're thinking about going away, you quite often will. The trigger is, what are we going to do when we're there? What have they got? So part of those things, the thinking was that. Sitting at a kitchen counter hadn't really been done in a little village pub before. So that was the focus, really.
I think humans love fire, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, sitting around a fire, a campfire outside, a barbecue, Inglenook fireplaces here, and when someone's cooking over fire, it's quite magical, isn't it? Because you can, there's probably about, I think, 14 seats or something around on the counter. So you just sit there and chat to the chefs whilst they're cooking, which is really, really lovely.
I think it was also the challenge of the design on it, because we there wasn't much. Originally, there was no kitchen really. There was a sort of back rooms were set aside as a kitchen, so we had to knock a lot of walls through. Yeah. But what we ended up with was a long, thin space, which. Then we had to sort of design the kitchen in with the fire, because the fire wasn't original. So.
I really love that it's there, and it does feel, talking about like medieval, where they would have a huge fire in the middle, the spit. Yeah. It does put it right at the heart.
Yeah.
But then actually the menu itself is a sort of small plates, large plates thing, which I love. You don't have to pick one thing. Yeah. And so it feels this, like you say, there's bacon ribs and quite.
Oh my God, they're
big.
amazing. Have you tried them?
We almost didn't order them, and the staff were like, can I just say you should just sack the duck parfait and get the bacon?
It's
and
so
we're
good.
so glad we did. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so you have these quite like medieval smoky meat dishes, but really light, and some delicious dips. I think we had the aubergine miso.
Yeah, that's
really
nice.
And they're using the sort of techniques of smoke as well.
And I think we're very lucky that we've got such a good team here. That Sean, who's our GM, is really into hospitality and putting the client first. But Henrik also had a Michelin star up in London at Aquavit, so there is a very good, solid hospitality and food industry team here.
And I think also they're quite technical. It's not just sort of, it's not just a barbecue. There's lots of technical detail that Henrik's using. So I think that, and also the menu needed to be modern, because I think, one of the things that we always sort of debate is delivery of the menu. If it was left to me, it would just be all, very, very red meat based, very male. But Georgie's always like, have you thought of,
a salad, maybe?
Salad would be good. So there's always that. So I think I like the balance of small plates, and, the way the structure is sort of, appeals to the foodie and also people who might just want to pop in and.
I mean, we make a sort of joke about it. It takes a lot of time, the menu planning and making all of that. I mean, it goes through lots of rigorous sort of testings and tastings.
And we have to talk about your chef series as well, which is super exciting.
So since we've opened, it was something we did at the Lucky Onion actually back in the day, which is sort of like, the idea was like sort of bringing London out. That was the whole idea to start with. It was actually trying to sort of, give people locally a bit of an experience of London, and also so it works on so many levels, because all the team internally get really excited about it.
Well, it also helped that in Cheltenham we had the Cheltenham Festival, so the literary festival, which is, basically the Times Literary Festival. So we had a lot of amazing people coming in doing talks about all sorts of different things. And we had a partnership with them, so that we had people like Ottolenghi coming along and various things, which obviously, he'd sell out within minutes.
I mean, here it's sort of, again, it's the same sort of strategy, really. It's just sort of makes an experience for people who are looking to book with us. I think it helps the team learn a bit. And it mixes it all up really nicely. And I think, we've had lots of, who have we had? We've got Henry Harris next week from Bouchon Racine. We've had Mitch Tonks from the Seahorse and Dartmouth. Who else? Jeremy Lee from Quo Vadis.
Been a load of them.
Yeah, loads of them. You've got me on. We try to do them every quarter. So again, it sort of mixes things up. So if you're local, you'll something to do really. I mean, I think it's sort of a point of interest. And
I quite like that it's quarterly. It's almost quite seasonal, isn't it? So each one can come, and they might be doing an autumn thing, or maybe summer's just here and they've got the whole veg patch to pick from.
No, it's mainly just to sort of keep things interesting for everyone, I think.
You said then for the locals, have you found people who come here, is it mostly local people, or do you get a lot of people on, trying to escape the big smoke for the weekend, or is it a real mixture?
It's a real mixture. Yeah, it's destination and local people. So
I mean, I think our hope would be it's there's nothing better than going into your local pub if you're a local and it's full of different types of people, and in the same way, if you're from London, you're coming in and it's full of locals. So I think the perfect pub for me is a balance of everything, and that's where it's all the community around a public house is centered around that.
Especially in the countryside, it's quite amazing the different people you get, but everyone, when they're sitting at the bar having a pint, they're all talking to each other, no matter what background they're from, you know, no matter what job they do, they're all sort of sitting around chatting, and it is really the heart of the community.
Yeah,
A really good pub. I think they're amazing.
Also, I mean, the interesting thing with Double Red, and I like the Double Red for, you know, it's not a country house, so you do have, you know, it's different when you're, you know, the perception of a country house is very much more like a destination. Let's get dressed up. Even nowadays with the likes of Soho House, it's still an occasion type experience. Whereas I think what we have here is like sort of, it bridges the gap between that. And actually, we're not a country house. We've got really high standards, and the food's very, you know, polished and accomplished. But I do think that it has a feel of an inn or a tavern that allows for this sort of community.
100%. And last night, I mean, I think it was a Thursday. I know Thursday's the new Friday, but still, you know, it's a small village in the country, midweek. You think it could be empty, couldn't it? But you walk in and it was bustle, people coming, going. The car park's full. I had to park like a mile down the road, get into the bar, and people are having a drink, having a beer. Then the restaurant, everyone's eating. There was such a hub. The chef's counter was full. It was just a real, like you say, like pillar of the community, a real mix of people just having a lovely Thursday night.
Yeah. It's really nice.
I think you're not going to appeal to. The truth is, you know, I don't think you appeal. Not everyone likes what you do. I mean, I think not everyone loves a pub, you know. But ultimately, I think there's what you strive to do is have the right balance of community and quality. So I think you know, it's an ongoing challenge. But I think generally it's certainly something for the locals.
Yeah, and I love all the little attention to details. Actually, you go into the room and there's a little walking map with sort of routes in, and it's, you know, all beautifully done, and just there's such care. You know, attention to every little detail. Go out there, explore the great outdoors. I think it feels way more friendly, welcoming, like pub hug rather than a stuffy country house. For sure.
Yeah, I think we're of the scale that allows for that sort of attention to detail. I think you know, if you imagine you're doing 10 of these, it would slightly lose that. But it's just that's why we're kind of quite proud of the sort of independence that it stands for.
Absolutely. So looking ahead, then, what's next? Do you have anything in the pipeline or anything you're thinking about for the next chapter of Double Red Duke or anything else?
Well, we have two hats really. So there's the Double Red Duke and Country Creatures, and we have two other projects relating to that coming up. But we can't really talk about those because, you know, they're sort of ongoing. They're in the pipeline. But then we also on the other side is we've got Cubit House in London, which is 8 public houses, some with rooms and some not. Some feel more like restaurants than pubs, some feel very pubby, and they're sort of all in Zone 1 in London. So we also do that, and we've got a couple of refurbishments going on at the moment and into next year, and then we have one other site next year that will be opening, and then we'll just see. We're sort of always looking at things and just see what happens. And then we've got the two that we'll hopefully be doing. They're not massive, and they sort of relate to the Double Red Duke.
And they complement this. So, that's in the pipeline.
Very mysterious, very intriguing. We'll have to stay tuned. Absolutely. Well, it's been such a pleasure chatting. Before we do go, I do have a game of Dream Spaces to play with you two. I'm going to ask you 3 prompts, and imagine you won the lottery, you bank that check, money is of no object, and I just want you to tell me the first space that comes to mind. First one is, where do you escape to get away from it all, to detox and disconnect?
So for me, 100% our home, our house, which is in the Cotswolds, and you know that I love. I mean, my perfect day would be sort of just pottering around the garden, you know, with dogs and family there and things like that. So that's where that's sort of like to me, our sanctuary that we sort of would always go to. Yeah.
Gorgeous. How about you, Sam?
I would say the mountains. I love skiing and everything that goes with skiing. Particularly a good lunch and some cheese. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy up there.
Any
away
favourite
from family and
no,
friends?
Yes, with my family.
Ditch them, leave them at home.
Anywhere in particular, we went to Verbier. We've been to Verbier. That's really good. Megève is, done a lot of skiing in Megève, which
It's stunning. Actually, Megève is very special because it's, again, a medieval sort of village on the side of the mountain. It's absolutely beautiful. Lots of sort of horses.
Yeah, we've been going there for quite a while, so we also know where we're going.
Yeah.
Where's good and where's not.
Yeah, very on brand for here as well, medieval.
Yeah.
Okay, next one's slightly different. Your ultimate birthday party. Where are you hosting it?
I just had it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
It was really good.
Actually, it was really good, yeah. So we had, I shared it. It was my 50th birthday, so I shared it with...
This is your perfect one.
It was pretty perfect, actually, surprisingly, because I didn't think it would be, but it worked out really well. I shared it with 3 friends, so 4 of us, old friends, and we invited 100 people each and hired out a big sort of old Victorian dance hall in London and had Groove Armada there. And it was really good fun. It was, literally so much fun. It was brilliant.
Ridiculous.
Lots of our friends overlap and things like that. So lots of lovely people all in the same room having fun for the first time in, a big party in many years because of COVID and stuff. So I really enjoyed it.
We've set the standard quite high there. I don't know how you're going to follow that, to be honest.
I don't know. I think it would be, there's a beach bar in Portugal called Passos, which is in the Algarve. And I think it's one of the great restaurants. My father had his 50th there, and it was stuck in my memory. And they do the best food. You're on the beach, probably have a morning of golf, and then get on the beach bar and have some fun.
You know what? You can't beat a beach bar.
Really good beach bar,
tavernas, all that sort of stuff. I think there's a sort of...
You can't beat fresh seafood, can you?
No,
So
with the
it's
sea.
just
And the
stunning.
sea,
Yeah. It will taste so much better as well, the food, doesn't it? Yeah.
Okay, last one. Your ultimate bucket list trip, once in a lifetime. Where are you going, and are you staying anywhere special?
It's tricky.
I was looking at a private villa in Cartagena, where it's an island, a private island villa, and I was thinking that might do for a bucket list sort of experience.
As in we've won the lottery type bucket list.
That's where
we have. Okay, so fine, that would be
no expense spared. That's where I'm going,
exactly.
With some friends.
Fly out a whole 20 friends and just go out there for
We do a month.
a month, and then maybe just carry on travelling around the world.
This is me. What's yours?
Oh, well, I'm going to go somewhere else then with my friends.
No, you're coming.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, so we're on an island, and then if you've won, the lottery, you just go off travelling and do a month there, a month somewhere else in South America, a month in New York, a month here, Paris, off to Asia. Just spread it a year, maybe take a year or 2 off, because money's no object. You can fly friends and family out to wherever you are. Yeah, sounds quite good.
Well, I hope you get
slight
your 2 years off.
Slight issue with that. Haven't won the lottery, but maybe.
I know, one day.
Don't even play the lottery, actually.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure chatting.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Curated Spaces podcast. For more information and content around any of the spaces we feature, head to our website or Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to have new episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Wednesday. And if there's a special place in your life that you'd like to hear on the Curated Spaces podcast, please do get in touch, as we're always on the lookout for more brilliant spaces to share with the world.